Life isn't always a calm sea. Sometimes we're faced with mountains that seem insurmountable, challenges that make us question everything around us. And it's precisely in those moments that faith becomes our greatest ally. Today, I want to tell you a story that will change the way you look at problems. The story of Abraham and Isaac, a biblical account about trust, surrender, and the importance of believing even when everything seems impossible. The morning began with a clear sky, tinged with shades of orange and gold, as the rising sun illuminated the horizon. Abraham, an old man but still vigorous, walked with firm steps alongside his son Isaac, a young man full of life and curiosity. On Isaac's shoulders rested a bundle of wood tied with ropes, prepared for the sacrifice that would be performed on the mountain God had indicated. The silence between the two was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Isaac, still not fully understanding what was to come, broke the silence. "Father, we have the wood and the fire, but where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham, with a serene look but with a heavy heart, replied, "God will provide the lamb, my son." These words echoed in the air, filled with unwavering faith. Abraham knew that this moment was a test, not only of his obedience, but of his trust in the divine plan. He remembered all the promises that God had made to him over the years, that he would be the father of a great nation, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. But now, faced with the order to sacrifice Isaac, the son of the promise, everything seemed contradictory. How could the promise be fulfilled if Isaac was no longer there? The journey to Mount Moriah was long and introspective. Abraham relived in his mind the most memorable moments of his life, leaving his homeland, Haran, guided by the voice of God, the endless wait for the son that Sarah, his wife, could not conceive, the indescribable joy of Isaac's birth when he and Sarah were already at an advanced age and beyond human hope. Now all of that seemed about to be taken from him, but Abraham did not hesitate. He did not question God. He did not try to find a human way out of that dilemma. Instead, he chose to trust. He believed that even in that seemingly hopeless situation, God had a greater purpose. He knew that faith was not about understanding all the details of the divine plan, but about surrendering completely to God's will, even when it seemed incomprehensible. Upon arriving at the place of sacrifice, Abraham built the altar with his own hands, arranged the wood, and with a heavy heart tied Isaac. The young man, trusting his father, did not resist. He also showed admirable faith, even without fully understanding what was happening. At the moment when Abraham raised the knife, ready to obey God's command, an angel of the Lord called out, "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." The air on top of Mount Moriah was filled with tension. Abraham, with trembling hands but firm in his decision, held the knife that gleamed under the sunlight. His heart beat fast, and every breath seemed to echo in his chest. He looked at Isaac, his beloved son, lying on the altar with his eyes closed and his face serene, trusting fully in his father. The wood was stacked, ready to be set on fire, and the silence around was almost palpable. It was at that exact moment when the knife was about to be plunged that a powerful and celestial voice broke the silence. "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy." Abraham froze. His hand, which held the knife, stopped in the air. He looked around, seeking the source of the voice, and then saw an angel of the Lord resplendent before him. The angel continued, "Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Relief flooded Abraham's heart. He dropped the knife and ran to untie Isaac, embracing him with a mixture of gratitude and indescribable emotion. It was then that his eyes turned to a movement among the nearby bushes. A ram, with its horns caught in the branches, swayed gently, as if it had been placed there at that very moment. Abraham understood immediately. That ram was God's provision, the answer to the sacrifice he had asked for. He did not want Isaac's life. He wanted Abraham's heart. That was a test of faith, not a tragedy. Abraham took the ram, placed it on the altar, and offered it as a sacrifice in place of his son. At that moment, Abraham learned a profound lesson about trust and faith. He understood that when we trust in something greater than ourselves, the pieces of the puzzle of life always fit together, even if we cannot see the whole picture at the beginning. He realized that God would never abandon him, and that his promises would always be fulfilled, even if the path seemed dark and full of uncertainties. How many times have we ourselves gone through situations where at the last moment a solution appeared? How many times have we found ourselves on the verge of despair, not knowing how to get out of a crisis, and then suddenly something happened? A new job came up when the bills seemed unsustainable. An unexpected reconciliation happened when a relationship seemed lost. A door opened when all the others seemed closed. These moments are like the ram in the bush. They remind us that even when we don't see the way out, it exists. Faith moves us to believe that there is a greater plan in action, even when we cannot fully understand it. Abraham's story teaches us that faith is not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with the certainty that God is in control. Think about your own life. Maybe you're facing a difficult situation now. Maybe you're wondering how things will work out, or if they will work out. Abraham's story encourages us to continue trusting even when the road ahead seems uncertain. Because, just as God provided for Abraham, He will also provide for you. Faith reminds us that we are not alone. It reminds us that there is a greater purpose in every challenge we face. And when we trust in that purpose, we discover that the pieces of the puzzle always fit together, even if we cannot see how in the beginning. So when you find yourself at a crucial moment where everything seems lost, remember Abraham. Remember that faith is not about seeing, but about believing. And by believing, you will discover that God's provision always arrives at the right time, bringing with it the hope and certainty that He never abandons us. Faith moves us to believe that even when we don't see the way out, it exists. And when we least expect it, God intervenes, showing us that He has always been in control, guiding every step of our path. The story of Abraham and Isaac, a legacy of faith and trust. The story of Abraham and Isaac is not just an ancient biblical account kept within the pages of sacred history. It is a powerful and timeless reminder that faith can be our greatest ally in the most difficult moments of life. This narrative, which spans centuries and cultures, continues to resonate deeply in our hearts because it speaks of a universal truth. Faith sustains us when everything around us seems to crumble. Imagine the scene again. Abraham, a man who waited decades for the promise of a son, finally sees the dream come true with the birth of Isaac. The joy of having an heir, the son of the promise, was indescribable. But then God makes a request that seems incomprehensible: to sacrifice Isaac. How could a father give up what he loves most? How would the promise of a great nation be fulfilled if Isaac was no longer there? Here is the beauty and depth of this story. Abraham did not have all the answers. He did not know how God would fulfill His promises if Isaac were sacrificed. But he had something much more valuable: faith. He trusted that even in that seemingly hopeless situation, God had a greater plan. And that trust was what sustained him in every step of that difficult journey to Mount Moriah. Faith in the challenges of modern life. Now, think about your own life. Whatever challenge you are facing today, a financial crisis that seems insurmountable, a troubled relationship that leaves you without hope, or even a doubt about the future that seems to have no answer. The story of Abraham teaches us that faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting that, in the end, everything will make sense. How often do we find ourselves in situations where the path ahead seems obscured by uncertainty? Perhaps you are struggling to pay the bills, trying to save a marriage that seems fragile, or facing an illness that challenges your strength. In these times, it is easy to feel lost, as if we are walking in the dark. But faith reminds us that even when we cannot see the way, God is guiding our steps. Abraham's story shows us that faith does not eliminate challenges, but gives us the strength to face them. It reminds us that even when everything seems lost, there is a divine provision waiting to be revealed. Just as the ram appeared at the crucial moment for Abraham, the solutions we need often arise when we least expect them. Transformative faith. So, are you ready to face your challenges with the same confidence as Abraham? His story invites us to reflect on how faith has already transformed our lives. Perhaps you have already experienced a moment where, at the last instant, a door opened, an answer came, or a seemingly impossible situation was resolved. These are the rams in the bushes of our life, the moments where God acts in ways we could not predict. Faith is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes. When we choose to trust, even when we don't understand, we are strengthening our ability to face future challenges with courage and hope. Abraham's story inspires us to believe that no matter how difficult the situation seems, there is a greater purpose in action. Share your journey. What about you? How has faith transformed your life? Share in the comments your experiences of moments where faith made a difference. Maybe it was a prayer answered, an unexpected healing, or a reconciliation that seemed impossible. Your story can inspire others to trust more and to see God's hand acting in their lives. The story of Abraham and Isaac is not just a lesson from the past. It is a call to live with faith in the present. So, when you find yourself facing a challenge that seems insurmountable, remember, faith is not about seeing, but about believing. And by believing, you will discover that in the end, everything will make sense. Faith moves us to believe that even when we don't see the way out, it exists. And when we least expect it, God intervenes, showing us that He has always been in control, guiding every step of our path. So take a deep breath, trust, and keep moving forward. Your provision may be right there, waiting to be revealed.